Let's turn now and bring in Evan Siegfried, Republican strategist and author of GOP GPS, as well as Jessica Tarlov, Democratic strategist and pollster, senior director of research at Bustle.com and a Fox News contributor. Well, here we are. After a very busy week. And before we talk about former FBI Director James Comey, who was fired by President Trump, let's talk about Attorney General Jeff Sessions going before the Senate committee on Tuesday. What can we anticipate from him as he speaks to the senators about James Comey and his relationship with Russia? Evan, we'll start with you.
Well, I think you're going to see Democrats come out and try and hammer him as hard as possible. What we actually saw in James Comey's testimony on Thursday was Senator Kamala Harris of California set the stage for Democrats to call for an investigation into him. He is now the scalp that Democrats want. They're seeing an easy opening because there are now 3 undocumented instances where he apparently met with Ambassador Kislyak of Russia.
Jessica, what do you say about that?
I think there are actually multiple scalps that Democrats would like to see. Jeff Sessions is obviously one of them. I mean,
and the others?
I think some are eyeing the president. I'm not going that far myself, but I certainly think if you were watching the James Comey testimony and even what happened the day before with Andrew McCabe and other members of the intelligence community, it's very clear that Democrats have their eye on the prize and they do want to, referencing what the RNC chairwoman said there, that they want to have definitive evidence that there was collusion between the Trump campaign, not just Donald Trump, but other members of it, Paul Manafort, Carter Page, Mike Flynn, et cetera.
But look, those are the satellites of the President of the United States. And the President of the United States, according to his own particular stance and take on this, is that go after the satellites, but already let the people know, saying this to James Comey, that I'm not a part of this.
Well, he did do that, and he was plenty thrilled with it, but it doesn't mean that his narrative coming out of that, which was that he was totally vindicated, is even close to accurate. I don't know how anyone watching that testimony who backed the president or the president himself would feel good about what happened that day.
Yeah, we're also seeing a lot of Republicans go out, and they are defending the president, but they're not defending the president under his own talking points of saying, I'm completely vindicated, I did nothing wrong. They're defending him saying he didn't know any better, and this was just errors of a new political neo.
Well, they're calling political experience. And of course, as we know, Donald Trump was a real estate magnate, a mogul, and now he's working as the president of the United States. So perhaps they're a little wiggle.
Yeah, of course, there's a learning curve there. But then to think about the fact that the president asked certain members of his cabinet to leave the room so he could have private conversations with members of the intelligence community, and we will find out what happened in those conversations in private session. I know that people.
But see, that is the point. That's one of the reasons why Jeff Sessions wants to come forward so that he can set the record straight.
I don't think Jeff Sessions wants to come forward. Jeff Sessions has his back up against the wall, and this has been going on for months now.
He's in a tough position right now.
It's a crisis management position for him to go out and say, I'm willing to testify now. He has no other choice. Otherwise, he looks like he has something to hide. He's taking the bull by the horns.
Let me bring in something else. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Congressman Peter King stating that as many Republicans are calling for the former Attorney General Loretta Lynch to testify about her dealings with James Comey as it related to that tarmac meeting that she had with the former President of the United States, Bill Clinton, about Hillary Clinton, and then telling according to James Comey's testimony before the Senate committee, going on to tell him, don't call it an investigation, call it a matter. So now Graham, Peter King, and others want to hear from Loretta Lynch.
Dianne Feinstein has actually said that she'd like to
So should Loretta Lynch come forward as well?
Oh, I think so. I think that while we are doing this, everybody who needs an investigation should get an investigation. I thought that it was certainly a big surprise that came out of the Comey testimony that happened. I just take issue with Republicans running with that as the main message of the day. Like, oh my God, Loretta Lynch. When James Comey stood up there and called Donald Trump a liar multiple times, said that he felt he was directed to end the Mike Flynn investigation.
Well, that was the only new revelation to come out of the Comey testimony. We already knew what he was saying.
No,
and he put
Donald Trump was not personally under investigation was new for a lot of people.
The reason why I say hold that thought for a moment, that James Comey called the president a liar, the president responded to that by saying, I'm vindicated, and he went on to tweet that he basically called James Comey a cowardly person. And he went on with saying that he's vindicated, and his attorney says that he's vindicated. But let's get to another point here. President Trump, as you know, wants to move forward with a very aggressive legislative agenda. We're talking about infrastructure, this week workforce development, also tax reform, the repeal of Obamacare and health care. All of this ambitious agenda is not being tabled. People are actually working on it, but no one's hearing about it because of these distractions. So is the swamp so murky that it's covering everything that the president and Congress is trying to do to make things right for the American people?
Certainly the Russia and the Comey stuff is getting in the way of getting the message out about infrastructure, tax reform, and the AHCA. But there is a lot of ineptitude on both the House side, the Senate side, and the White House side in dealing with this. The president had his infrastructure week last week, and nobody heard about it, and nobody in either the Senate or the House put forward a bill to work on infrastructure. So we just talked about infrastructure and got no action. The American people voted in November to have action and see tangible results. Right now, the only tangible results a member of the Senate, who's a Republican, can give their constituents is Judge Gorsuch. And in the House, they aren't even that lucky. They have no major legislative accomplishments to show, and Republicans are very worried.
Jessica, the Republicans are very worried, and the president should be worried, because in order to get this aggressive legislative agenda passed, he has to rely on Democrats as well as Republicans.
Yeah,
and
he should do a better job of courting those Democrats. I mean, he
what
really
should he
needs,
do?
Well, he should try not calling them names, for one. He should try and being a little bit more peaceable, I think, about the Comey and the Russia investigation. I think it's not smart for him to be on Twitter the way that he was this morning. I know he took the day off on the day of the actual testimony, but this morning coming out and going after them, just saying Democrats are just the obstructionists when you have a caucus that you cannot control yourself.
Evan, once again, we're hearing tweets, and people are saying to the president, could you hold off just a little bit, back off the tweets?
I think people...
But this is his way of dealing with the American people, because he says the media is fake and doesn't give him enough coverage, positive coverage, so he does this.
We're seeing this problem with the president's tweets. While he can get out and put a good message, he hasn't been putting out a good message. It's sowing chaos, and it's distracting from these very things such as infrastructure. I think the president was spot on and right this morning where he talked about how Democrats have no message. They really don't. Look at the leader of their party. He's not even a Democrat. He's a socialist.
He's not the leader of our party.
Who
Speaking
else
of Bernie
is your leader?
Sanders, he attacked the president.
Yes, I mean, that part was good, I guess, for Democrats. But generally speaking, I mean, that's what Democrats are out there to do in those kinds of...
Okay,
I mean, this was at a summit. This was not
all right.
just...
When will people in Washington pull up their big boy pants and start working together to not only get through these distractions, but get to the business of dealing with the American people, to do what's best for the American people so that the country can move forward with some certainty, with some programs that put jobs and food on the table and make our country better?
You're implying that Congress has pants to pull up. It's the emperor has no clothes. They are constantly trying to dig in for political reasons to get reelected in 2018 and 2020 and not doing the work of the American people. And that's the core root of all the dysfunction in Washington.
Real quickly, Jessica, real quick.
I see a lot of pants and a lot of skirts, but we need more skirts for sure. What I would say is that I really hope that we get to it in good time for the 2018 midterms, because the truth of the matter is that if we have another turnout like we did in 2016, there's a chance we may not be able to take back the House, even though the polls are leaning our way and the generic ballot is shifting towards Democrats.
Okay. Jessica, you get to end on that note for the Democrats. Evan, good of you to join us today, both
Thanks
of you.
so much,
Thank you
Kelly.
so much
for having us.
Your insights.